gives us, it's a way to encourage our future generations, just looking forward, even though sometimes it's not clear where we're going. And so women historically have been seen as these practices, these appealing and appealing, and to their families, to their workplace, to their work communities, and sometimes so today I hope that I can share the names of the women who have made some great sacrifices about healing and hope. So again, how do we begin? This is how the listeners, sorry, the listeners, and listen, we try this, we try to help, we try to dig in, and we try to help them make decisions about their general welfare, how to approach their general welfare. I'm sure my fellow panelists will share from a physical and a mental health standpoint how we do this. And so it all kind of helps back to women's safety, again, making sure women have ways of making sure women has the right to but again, this place of women as healers has not always been well, not always been, we have not always been allowed to them people as women. There are times in history where midwives actually burn as witches and witness efforts and try to revive pain. There were highly restricted laws that women from advancing themselves and research and profession of the person. Nurses weren't always the heroes today. Nurses used to be people who were living. Huge sacrifices to get there, but we have led the way, and the division and healing wounds and bodies. That's sort of a major role that we've played in history during these times and war times. So just to help back to some of those women who made major mark in nursing. Nursing is one of the most prominent healthcare professions, one of the most trusted healthcare professions, and just as were also around the COVID-19 pandemic, we were on the front line of the Spanish flu pandemic back in 1918, and so we continue to work alongside our male counterparts on the front lines. So today, as we are past the pandemic, we're still in it, but we're just in it better than we were. So the field of nursing is 90% women and it's 80% white women. So again, there has been many challenges for women of color to advance their way into the nursing profession, and again, that has to do with the need for health equity and equality and access to care, because oftentimes people respond to individuals providing them care and hope if they know that those individuals can relate to them, if they share some commonalities with them. And so I will share a few women who have actually made some significant advances in nursing and in medicine. Among the most famous nurses is Clara Barton. She was known for providing care to soldiers during the Civil War. And after the war, Ms. Barton ran the Office of Missing Soldiers. And in 1871, she established the Red Cross, which is still here today, providing emergency assistance and care for individuals in the way of disaster relief. Also, we have Linda Richards, who was the first female to graduate from, to receive professionally trained nursing in the United States and graduate from a professional program.
And she went on later to establish the programs for training nurses in the United States and in Japan. And then that was in 1873. 6 years later, we had Mary Eliza Mahoney. Anybody that's been in my office, I brought this with me. This came off of my bookshelf. It sits in the corner of my bookshelf facing me to remind me that I got here on the back of somebody else. Somebody came before me. And so Miss Mahoney was the first professionally trained African-American nurse, and she graduated in 1879, and she went on to found the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. And so if I had any of my students here, they would recognize this name. One of our nursing pioneers is Lillian Wahl. She founded the Visiting Nurses Services of New York, which really brought nurses to the forefront in public health. Nurses have always been in the forefront of public health. And in the medical field, it was just as challenging. Women were seen as incapable of providing medical care, and Elizabeth Blackwell faced extraordinary harassment by her male classmates in her effort to obtain her medical education, and was one of the first women to receive a doctoral degree in the United States. And likewise, she was followed by Rebecca Lee Crumpler, who was the first woman of color to earn a doctoral degree, a medical degree in the United States. And so, again, these women made significant sacrifices. As well as in medicine, women have also found challenges in research. Hattie Elizabeth Alexander developed the first effective remedies for influenza and reduced the mortality rate from nearly 100%. We used to die from the flu. We no longer, hopefully, die from the flu due to vaccines and other technologies. But she reduced the influenza mortality rate from 100% to less than 25%. And virologists or microbiologists, if I have students listening who are in the science, the physical science world, Flossie Wong Stahl pioneered research of retroviruses, and we've all heard of retroviruses when we think about HIV. So she was the first, her and her team, to decipher the structure of the HIV virus, and this virus is associated with the condition that we all know as AIDS. And then in 1981, Patricia Era Bass, an ophthalmologist, invented the laser phaco probe. This probe was paramount in offering laser cataract surgery. Again, we don't often think of women as bringing forth some of these medical marvels that we now take for granted. And Dr. Virginia Apgar, if I have anybody in medicine, they will recognize the term. If you've had a baby, you may have heard your doctor refer to your child's Apgar score. But Virginia Apgar, a woman, developed the Apgar score that is used to provide a quick, immediate assessment of newborns to establish whether your baby goes in your arms or goes to the NICU. That was developed by a woman. And then Annie, forgive me if I mispronounce his name, Annie Dodge Winnetka was the first woman elected to the Navajo Tribal Council, and she combined modern Western medicine with traditional healing practices of the Navajo Indians to combat tuberculosis and to address the epidemic that some of the reservations were seeing with tuberculosis. I can't say the word tuberculosis. And lastly, Nora Folkow, a Mexican-American psychiatrist, studied the mechanisms of drug addictions and contributed to treatment modalities that we use today to manage people who suffer from drug addictions. So these are just a few of the contributions that women have made to healing. And they don't have to be this significant. Just listening, just helping people to find sources of hope, referring people to services throughout our campus, throughout our community goes a long way in providing hope that ultimately can allow them to heal from whatever traumas they may have or will experience. So that's how I view it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wharton.
You're welcome.
My name is Kim Shannon. Like Jessica said, I'm the Executive Director of Wellness and Holistic Support at the Wellness Center. I came to Lander in 2009 as the staff nurse. It was a very different wellness center at that point. And a few years later, I was given the opportunity to become director there. And I have made it my mission to make the Wellness Center into what I see as a beacon of hope for students on campus. We try very hard to be the best that we can be, and everything that we put into our Wellness Center is carefully thought out. We try to keep the needs of our students first and foremost, you know, in everything that we do. I have a vision for the Wellness Center, and I share it. I am so proud of our Wellness Center, and I like to share in my pride of the Wellness Center. Folks who are able to join our team are very carefully screened and make sure that the values and the things that they find important are the same things that are part of our mission when we deal with our campus community. I always tell people, students never come to see us on their best day. Like, you don't wake up and you're feeling great and you're like, I'm going to go to the Wellness Center today. That rarely happens. When it does happen, we are thrilled. But it's not something that students really look forward to. So that has always been part of the challenge that I've had, to be available for students, to have a staff that is capable of dealing with the very worst parts of things that students deal with and be resilient enough to come back the next day and be willing to do it again. To be able to take the after hours calls and care for students that, you know, our students don't just need help from 8 to 5. Our campus community does not need help from 8 to 5. There are after hours things that happen, and we have to be available to students. I've been very fortunate in the staff that we do have, and they share the same passion and love for our students that I have. It's important for people who represent our Wellness Center to be able to meet students where they are, and staff and faculty too, because we care for everyone on campus. But we need to be able to meet that person where they are, and that is so important. A lot of the times I share with our staff, you know, this student didn't just wake up and decide, today's the day I'm going to go get help. There was a lot that led up to this. So for many people who come through our doors, this is a courageous decision to finally come and get help with something that you've struggled with. So for them to just make it to our door, we have to make sure that from the time they open that door, that we are welcoming, that we are non-judgmental, that we are helpful, that we're positive, that we present everything that we would want to see if we were going somewhere to seek help. Because people are looking for hope. They're looking for help, and they're looking for hope. And that's what is important for us to present. So even if you're having a bad day, you need to put that aside and let's help this person that's here for our help. And our staff is fantastic about that. I have a hard time sometimes finding folks who fit in. I know HR sometimes gets, you know, I ask for a lot. We go through a lot of people. We through the interview process, because there has to be a certain personality, because people from all walks of life, with all beliefs, all lifestyles, all medical conditions, all mental health conditions are going to come through that door. And I have to make sure that the people that they work with in my office are capable and that they're willing and that they can do this in the best possible manner. The majority of the work that we do is one-on-one behind closed doors. So I don't sit in with a nurse who's treating a student or a counselor who's having sessions or a disability coordinator who's conducting an interview. I have to trust that the staff is competent and able to care for our students in the best way possible. And I can say with 100% certainty that that's who our staff is. They are compassionate, they want to give hope, they want to be beacons of hope. And through the years, the way that our Wellness Center has changed, a lot of it has been to meet the needs of students in need of healing and in need of hope. Before anything was ever official with a food pantry or a toiletry closet or a clothes closet, we had all those things at the Wellness Center. When people would travel, I would say, if you would just pick up the toiletries, or if you will ask the environmental services folks there at the hotel to give you the samples, bring those back to me. I can give those to students. And when something went on sale, I bought it and I would bring it into the Wellness Center because there are always students who need things. A lot of the times we're under the assumption that someone had the same experience as we did. But the students who come to us with needs, sometimes they are very basic needs. They can't afford deodorant. They can't afford soap. They can't afford toilet paper. I want to be able to give things to people that they need. I grew up with Mr. Rogers. I don't know if y'all know Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So Mr. Rogers, he always told this story about, you know, when he got scared and he would go to his mom would say, go find the helpers. Go find the helpers. There are always people to help. So that's what I grew up on. I wanted to be a helper. I've always been a helper. I've been the oldest of 4 girls. So I was always the ones who helped my sisters. I helped my mom. And that's what I've always been. So when I moved into this role, that's what I like to be for the campus community. I like to help. I like to provide things for people in need. I can't stand the thought of someone needing something and me not being able to meet that need for them. So that's kind of, you know, the way that our culture in the Wellness Center has grown from there. Our staff is very good at mentoring students, getting to know them, and really getting to the heart of what they need. And I know that you notice that we reach out from time to time with toiletry drives and things like that. That has helped our students in ways that you can't possibly imagine. A lot of students come to school and everything is provided for them, and that's not the case with so many of our other students. I like move-in day to be able to move through and see what students move in with, to see what their supplies look like, so that, you know, we can make notes of things like this student moved in with very little supplies. So guess what? This student won a drawing that they did not know that they entered, and we give them supplies. We give them the opportunity to come to the Wellness Center to get to know us so that they know these supplies are available, but we don't want to embarrass them or put them, you know, in a position where it's difficult for them. So a lot of things that we do come from a place of trying to provide hope for students, for healing for students. The pandemic has really posed a lot of problems for us, like it has everyone. And it's been such an uncertain time for established families with, you know, a very safe and structured and financially secure family. But for so many students that we encounter now, the pandemic has really sent them into a tailspin. We are seeing such an increase of mental health issues. We're seeing so many people are suffering from anxiety and depression, and that loss of hope. You know, this pandemic has gone on and on and on and on and on, and sometimes you see students who are suffering from that, and that hope that they need is, you know, you have to be a beacon for that. I was so thankful that the university recognized that need in our Student Crisis Fund. That was one of the most important parts of what we did during the pandemic. We were able to provide those funds to students who weren't able to work. So many of our students work in food services, and they weren't able to work anymore because restaurants closed down. And it was so difficult for students to maintain any kind of standard of living. So even though this was just a little bit of money, we pulled resources and we were able to do things like that. Our staff is good about recognizing people in need, and we constantly, you know, go out and buy things for students and making sure that they have that. I think that people always need hope, and there's always some amount of healing that every person needs. And I think that it's important for people to know that there is someone who cares and there's someone that can help them. I hope when people do think about the Wellness Center, they think of us as helpers, because that's who we want to be. And I hope they see it as a place where they can come and get the help that they need, and if we can't help you, we will send you somewhere else. We will love you over there. We will not judge you. We will take care of you. And that's the kind of thing that I hope that people think about us and the way that they see us. What I tell people a lot of times, students especially who need help, is to watch the things and be very mindful of the things that you do to nourish yourself. And that's in every way possible. How you nourish yourself physically. Do you take care of yourself? Do you exercise? Do you walk? Do you meditate? These kinds of things. What kind of foods do you eat? How do you nourish yourself with food? Do you choose good foods? Do you stay away from things that don't agree with you? How do you nourish yourself spiritually? I think that, some people pray, some people have a God, some people meditate. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I think when you look at nourishment in your body and always possible, that's going to be the secret to healing yourself. And even if that's going outside and seeing, going outside of what you're comfortable with and seeing a counselor or seeing a nurse or seeing some other helper, I think those are the kinds of things that people look for in healing. I nourish myself a lot by reading. I like to read poetry, and it's short. It gives you something to really think about. One of my favorite poets happens to be a woman, Maya Angelou. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with her. Read some of her poems, and she's an amazing person with a lot of insight into life and things, and she's all about giving you hope. So I want to share this in conclusion with what I want to say. So she said, God put rainbows in the clouds so that each of us in the dreariest and most dreaded moments can see the possibility of hope. So I'm just going to leave you with that.
My turn. I am Jalysa Green, and I serve as the Director of Student Conduct and Community Standards at the university. Unlike these lovely panelists that sit beside me, as it relates to when it comes to my office, it's very much dark. Nobody ever wants to come to the Office of Student Conduct because that means you have done something to put yourself in here to basically have to be reprimanded for. That is not the goal of my office. The actual goal of any student conduct is to be placed out of business. Any student conduct personnel that you would ever talk to will tell you, we don't want to do the job that we have, and our goal is to not have a student conduct because we want people to be productive citizens in society. Our founder of the Associated Student Conduct Professionals, Gearing, that was the reasoning for him coming up with ASCA, as we refer to it as, to be able to help our students not be unproductive citizens in society, but to allow us to be able to get out of a job and do something else. So one of the things when students come into my office, I'm often looked at as the resolver. Like, I did this, so here, what are my consequences? And I have to pull, and it's not hard for me to pull because I'm very much an encourager, very much a positive person, so it's not hard for me to pull a sense of hope. But the first question that I ask a student is, how did you get here and why, or why are you here? And they look at me because they're often expecting for me to say, you did this and this equates to this, and that's not the case. The mission and goal of our student conduct here at the university is to create an understanding and to hold students accountable and responsible for their actions. We don't have rules and regulations just to have them, but there's reasoning behind it. So how did you end up not falling in line with that rule and regulation? And from there have been a plethora of stories that led to how they ended up in my office and where that leads them after they leave my office. I have a sign in my office, and most people see it when they come into my office, and it says, you're responsible for the energy that you bring into this space. You're going to come into a positive space regardless of what you did, but it's up to you to be able to create the aura and the energy that you want reciprocated in the office. As Dr. Wharton said, you have to take things one day at a time, one step at a time, and that's what I tell students. We're going to go through the process literally one step at a time. It's not the end all be all. I have students come in a panic. I'm sure you all have had students come into your office in a panic and just in a disarray, but to be able to break through to them to where they have the ability, because we've created a space, a safe space for them to be able to walk through and talk through to find that hope. It's not always easy to tell a student, like, wow, I know you shouldn't have been doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to have to suspend you. And they look at me, tears in their eyes, or they're angry. But the reality of it is, I often follow up with that is, this is just a bump in the road. Are you going to sit on the bump, or are you going to progress over the bump to be able to achieve any goal that you have? When I thought about sitting on this women's panel, I figured one of the questions would be, what inspires your work? One of my entire cliches of working in higher education has always been to keep the main thing the main thing. Without students, we couldn't do what we do. And as a woman, it helps because we're naturally nurturers. So to be able to pour into people, to be able to pour into students and give them what they need, the beacon of hope that they never thought that they could see from hearing me say, well, you'll be suspended, however, how can I help you progress through this? Let me help you look at transferable courses that you can take at another university to transfer back to. How can I walk you through being able to achieve the ultimate goal of being here to obtain a degree? Walking through and creating that sense of understanding. So the students and everybody that I encounter on a day-to-day inspires me to do the work, whether it's the commitment and the dedication that you've poured into whatever role that you have, whether you're a student, staff member, or faculty member. That is something that I look at and I say, okay, hey, maybe that I could utilize that. Don't get it wrong with the sense of comparison, because a lot of times we tend to compare ourselves to others and it creates an insecurity. But wanting to uplift and say, hey, I can think this is a good trait that my peer, my colleague has, and I want to be able to implement that in my own way. So being able to pour into yourself based off of the things that come your way. One of the things that I commonly tell students, or as a common theme in my office, is embrace the process. It's not just the outcome. So while I may be presenting you an outcome, you have to create how that outcome affects you. So there are several different things that students want and desire here on the collegiate campus that they have and can obtain many different ways, but figuring out what that process looks like and how you go through that process is what makes your journey even more special to you versus someone else. Celebrate your wins. Important, and that's something I tell students all the time, and it's like, I'm winning because I'm being reprimanded for doing something wrong. Yes, because you got to meet me. You got to meet me as a resource, somebody that can lead you to the different resources that we have here on campus. You got to meet me to be able to say, like, well, maybe my experience wasn't as bad, or maybe this is something that I can get over. And it's not just me. I also have an amazing assistant director who, again, has learned and can eloquently execute these same process and mission that we have to create an understanding that we're here to create, to hold students accountable and responsible, but we're dedicated and committed to it as well. And whatever it takes to get to that point in your path of meeting and crossing paths with us, we'll do that. I think that's all that I have, and just remember to pour into people, because you never know what you're going to get out of that. You may be drained, but there may be times where you pouring in gives you more than what you think it gave to someone else. And being able to surround yourself with like-minded people, and even people who aren't like-minded people that have goals, but people that have goals that are similar to the ones that you have, to be able to progress. So yeah. You never know what you're going to encounter.
I would like to kind of circle back, having listened to my fellow panelists, and just kind of talk about nursing for a moment. Again, one of the highest demanded majors on our campus. You heard me say earlier that 90% of nurses in the U.S. are female, are women. And so some of these character traits that you heard Ms. Shannon mention, it's our job to, if they don't come to us with those traits, to instill those traits in our students that will then go out, so that they can go out and give people hope and be a healer. And I often tell students, you can't give if you're not 100%, if you're not whole. It's very hard for you to go and give to somebody else. And the patient or the client that the wellness center serves, or that the support services serves, that client is oftentimes coming into these situations. Nurses encounter clients or patients that come into that situation oftentimes at their worst. So you have to be at your best. I often tell my students that when I worked as a nurse, whatever I had going on that day at the house, with the children, with the husband, when I swiped my card, my badge to clock in, I left all those problems right there, because I got to walk in 100% so that I can give that to my patients, because they may not have any reserve. So I have to have all the reserve for them. And you have to go in there, and we have to educate students, and we already have the support of Lander University and all these different departments to pour into these students, to give them, or to get them, in many cases, to that 100%. They come to us broken sometimes with their own traumas, with their own baggages, but they have to get to a point where they can go out and care for other people, especially in the School of Nursing. So I felt like I needed to say that, because a lot of times across campus we hear, oh, nursing school is so hard, oh, they're so unfair to students. You know, think about what our charge is. We're trying to prepare Kim Shannons. Think about what we're trying to do. And it takes not just the books, not just the classroom and the clinical, but sometimes we have to pour into that character development so that they can go out there and instill that hope and that care. Because you've all heard it, people don't want to care how much you know until they know how much you care. So how do we prepare our graduates so that people immediately see that compassion, they immediately see that helpfulness, that welcomeness, that caring? And so Lander, they've heard me say it, when you go out, we don't just prepare nurses, we prepare Lander nurses, and there is a difference in those students, and it requires us instilling that drive to be a healer and to be able to provide hope when sometimes there's not an obvious source of hope. So, thank you.
Well, can we please give these lovely ladies a round of applause? Thank you very much for taking time out your day to come and talk about hope and healing. At this time, we're going to open the floor. If we have any questions or any comments or anything that anyone wants to ask these ladies before we end today and conclude, I'm going to open up the floor now. So if anyone has any questions, could you please ask our panelists at this time? Dr. Yarbrough.
So this is not directed to any specific person, but I hear and read a lot in American society about disparity between the pay of men and the pay of women. And I would like you to have the opportunity to respond, to share your thoughts on where Lander is with that and what work we might still need to do in that regard.
Again, I have a vibe because my department has very few males in it. But again, I can't speak for Lander University in any type of salary disparity. I'm not aware of any such salary disparity among, among my equal counterparts. Even in the even in the profession of nursing, I don't think you see that type of disparity in salary amongst nurses. Medicine, maybe a different story, but nursing, not so much. No.
And is that because it is 90% women?
I would.
There you go. Okay.
It's power in numbers.
I'm not aware of any disparity in salary, and of course I can only speak for my department because I'm only aware of the salaries in my department. We are very careful to, when there is talk of salary and hiring, I'm very careful to see where a salary and experience lies. I guess I don't really look, I try not to use gender or anything like that to determine. I look at skill. I look at the right person and the right fit and the right experience and those kinds of things. And, you know, I've heard, this has been a thing probably the last year. People have commented on the Wellness Center being very diverse. And I'm going to be honest here. I did not plan that. I don't plan anything. I mean, maybe I should take credit for it, but I didn't do that. I'm looking for the right people, and it just so happened that the right people is a diverse group of people. I want people who can meet our students' needs, and it just so happens that we are all different colors, shapes, and sizes there, and that's a wonderful thing because a lot of the times the students will see someone that they identify with. So I don't really see that in my area. I know there's a huge difference between university paid staff and private sector. There's a huge difference there. But what I like to say, you know, in response to that is, you know, we have the ability to really control a lot of what we do here. If you work in a hospital, you're not going to have the freedom to come up and do these programs that we can just make up on our own and meet our students' needs there. The hospital is not going to allow you to set up a toiletry closet because you think somebody needs that. I mean, you know, so we have a lot of, I feel like we can really meet needs here. And that's what keeps me excited about coming to work every day and really in tune with what's going on with our students and our community, our campus community. So I think, you know, pay is not, I mean, it's important, but it's not high on my list, and I try not to compare myself to outside agencies. But within, getting back to your question, I don't really see a difference here in our area at least. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions in the audience?
I just had a comment. Dr. Wharton was talking about innovative women. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a woman that headed the team that developed the first COVID vaccine.
And I'm thinking you are correct. And I don't recall the name, but I also remember one of those scientists that was responsible for contributing to that vaccine actually spoke at the Wofford College for their commencement service. And it actually was an African-American female. She was a undergraduate from Wofford that had went on to go into research. So there were several women, I'm sure, on those teams. So I can't recall exactly their role and who they were, but yeah, just the sheer fact that, again, women are rightfully taking their place at many tables, whether it be research, medicine, nursing, business. So it's a beautiful thing.
Got a question?
You talked about several ways that you instill hope, especially in your respective areas of the university. But as a woman, just in general, what would you say is your number one way that you instill hope in people?
I think mine is just the gift of just encouraging, because we all need a little bit of encouragement to keep going. It's not always easy to consistently go, but just to be able to have that one random quote or that one random scripture or that one funny meme that just kind of keeps you going and encouraged. And again, and as Kim said, knowing what you're putting in to you, what you're surrounding yourself by is something that kind of helps me to continue to go. Like, there are days where I'm just like, is this it? And then I get here and I'm like, yeah, this is it, because I have to keep the main thing the main. I'm here for a reason, and realizing that realizing what my reasoning is and my desire and the commitment that I've made for it. So yeah, that's mine.
Growing up, I was a very different person than I am, and sometimes I recognize a lot of my former self when I see students, and I think part of it wasn't necessarily low self-esteem, because I didn't have that, but like a belief in the things that you could do. And as I've gotten older, there have been things that have empowered me. And I know this may seem silly, but I exercise every day. And I exercise in the fitness center with college students who are a lot younger than me. I mean, I'm more than twice as old as most of the college students in there. And I am strong and I'm capable, and it has really empowered me and changed the way that I see myself. I see myself now as someone who is very capable. I wish, it is my one wish, my one regret, that I wasn't able to be that person at a younger age. And every student that I see, people laugh at me. They're like, you're just wanting them to come to the gym. But it's not really about that. It's about the self-empowerment and the things that you can learn about yourself in there. And that's one thing that has helped me tremendously. And I just want to share that with young women, and the young women who have that insecurity and that not feeling like they're the strongest person ever. Like, I feel like I am incredibly strong and I'm incredibly powerful, not just in strength, but in my passion and in my views about things and where I am in life. And I think about my younger self and the things that frightened me and that I was so, I felt incapable at times. And I don't feel incapable now. And I just wish that I could instill that in young women that I see now who are college age. And I think so much of that came from the ability to know what I can do physically. It changes you mentally when you're able to do things physically that you never thought you could do. And it's a weird concept. And a lot of people, I just wish that people would take a chance on things like that. That is my big encouragement for people. Find something that you feel good about, that's healthy for you and grows your mind and body and spirit, and stick with that. It doesn't have to be the gym. It can be anything that is good and healthy for you. It's really going to grow your character and the ability to see yourself in such a positive light.
I think I instill hope in students and faculty and anybody that comes into my circle of influence by just, first of all, listening, and by secondly, being prepared to give of myself. So many of my students, when I share my story with them, they be like, well, Dr. Wharton, you just from 20 miles down the road from Abbeville. You ain't nothing big and bad about you. There's nothing special about you. I struggle to learn just like they struggle to learn. I come from a single parent home like many of them. I have very dysfunctional upbringing, but I took it one day, one step at a time, and I just would not take no for an answer. And that's what I tell students. If you want this bad enough, you'll do what you need to do it. And it doesn't require some special intellect or some special gift. It requires desire and motivation and work. And so to me, many times I keep the tissues at the corner. Here you go. Go ahead and get your tissue, get your cry out. Now, let's get to work. So, because that's just what it takes. Sometimes you just got to listen to them, let them share their story, then proper disclosure. Nurses, we teach everything inappropriate to disclose. But sometimes just letting them know, been there, done that. I really have. I've walked that walk, and you can too. And my door is open whenever you need to come in and have someone listen to you. And I see that. I use that same approach even when I'm on the floor taking care of patients. I set up my day so that I have enough time for those patients who I know need to talk, need to be heard, for those family members that need to get clarification on something the doctor rushed in and rushed out and said. So just being able to listen to people and meet them where they are. So.
We do have a question from online.
Yes, it was, did COVID-19 have a positive impact or a negative impact on you and in your professions? Maybe a mix.
I think the answer is both.
Yeah.
I think most people see the negative in COVID, but I see COVID as far as the healthcare system, there were already nicks in the armor, and COVID just pulled that veil back and exposed it. And so now the positive of COVID, now we got to go back in and strengthen the system so that when the next pandemic comes or the next epidemic comes, we will be ready. There are things that we learned how to do in COVID that we didn't know how to do before COVID. And now it's hard for us as educators, because what do the students like to say? Well, we can't teach that. Ooh, sorry, I touched my mic. We can't teach online. Well, you did it when COVID came, so yes, actually you can. So it's like we've created these opportunities that now we can't backpedal our way out of. And so I think, there were lots of losses through COVID, but I choose to focus on some of the gains as well.
I can tell you personally, COVID probably the most positive thing in my life that's ever happened to me personally came out of COVID. And I did not share the story for a long time, and I'll share it quickly here, but I was in the hospital for 9 days with pneumonia, with COVID pneumonia. And during those 9 days, I was isolated and alone for 9 days. And I don't know if you've ever been by yourself for 9 days and stripped of everything, freedom, the ability to eat, the ability to sit up, the ability to breathe. But when you are lying on that bed and the only thing that you can really do at that point is concentrate on breathing, you're afraid to go to sleep, you get real close to yourself and you have some conversations, and you get to the heart of what your life is all about. And I found hope in a Bible verse that I carry with me all the time. And at that point, I was to a point where I had nothing else. Like, I couldn't talk to my family. I was too weak to do anything. And I found hope in a Bible verse. And Jalysa's heard this story before because I shared it with her a long time ago. But I found my hope there, and it has changed my life. So the worst possible thing, I'd never been separated from my child or my husband for 9 days. The things that are most important to me, but I was at that point. And when I had nothing else, I found that hope there. And that Bible verse is something that I will carry with me all the time. So my hope was there. The people who healed me were nurses, and they were the most fantastic. And one that was my absolute favorite, she came from Lander School of Nursing. And she's fantastic. And so I think even in the darkest of times, if you can find something to hang that hope on, you can make it through that. So that was the worst time of my life, but it ended up being the best time of my life because I reached a place personally and emotionally that I'd never been before. And I'm a better person for it now.
I think to sum it up, it's definitely, as Dr. Wharton said, COVID revealed a lot. It pulled back the curtain of a lot of things for a lot of people, things that were important, things that were not important, just as Kim stated. So for me, thinking about it and the effects that it has on the impact that I see as it relates to students, you go from being able to do whatever, live your life as normal, and then this new normal comes around. And then now we're cycling back to getting back to the previous normal. And the realities of that is trying to find a balance. I tell my supervisor all the time, I do not believe in work-life balance. Balance is not something that I believe in. I believe in prioritization. You prioritize what matters the most to you to be able to then focus on the things that need the more of your time. And so that's what I think, that's what I kind of feel like COVID has done. It allowed us to really reflect on what's priority and what's not priority in our lives, whether it's personal, whether it's work, just being able to create that sense of understanding of, okay, this is more important or this can wait.
We have one more.
Okay, one more question.
So what if we were to observe just, all of us out here, a woman in crisis, whether it be emotional or mental health? What are ways that normal people that may not be in the medical profession, how would we see that and get them treatment? What are some options for us? Or what would you recommend?
I would just recommend, walking up and just offering support. Are you okay? See where that takes you. See if you can get them, somewhere that's a little more private, because if they're out in the middle and this is happening, it's probably making things worse. Just let them know you're here to help. What can I do to help you? Is there something I can help with? People want to hear that, if they're distressed or in trouble, they need a lifeline somewhere. And if you just say that word, I'm here to help. Can I help you? I think, just kind of taking it from there. Try to, whatever it is that they're struggling with, just be there for them.
And you don't have to be a faculty member or a staff member or an administrator to help somebody. And so even if you're a student, even if you're a visitor on our campus, a community member, knowing what resources are available on our campus, especially students, if it's your roommate, if it's a peer, so that you can direct them to the resources that they need. Again, walk them to the wellness center if you know where the wellness center is, or call LUPD to get somebody there that can then help you to get that person the resources they need. So and we've done that through our LINK program, trying to help our students know what resources are available to them. Our staff, our faculty know what resources are available within our Lander community, so that when that time comes, we can be a proper referral or a proper support or source of hope for whatever situation we find ourselves in.
Okay. Well, in conclusion, I want to say again on behalf of Diversity Advisory Council, thank you so much for sitting on our panel for Hope and Healing. To everybody who's in our audience today and also who's streaming online, Lander University has an amazing team, professionally staffed to help with any kind of mental illness or anything that you have going on. If you want to reach out to Kim, Shannon, Dr. Wharton, or Jalysa, but if also just utilize the Wellness Center to utilize those resources that are available to our students. And also our faculty and staff, we do have an EAP program that is available to you, and if you need to get in touch with our benefits manager, Cheryl Lewis, to get more information on that. Everybody's journey on hope and healing is different, but we want to get everyone back thriving. So we appreciate you for listening today. We appreciate you for coming. We appreciate you for tuning in, and we appreciate you guys for taking time out of your day to sit with us today to talk about hope and healing. You can't pour from an empty cup. We want you to continue pouring into individuals, pouring into others, the students, faculty, staff, and everybody, but make sure that your cup is also full. So thank you guys as we conclude today.